Boom! The Texas Longhorns get a commitment from Jett Walker, running back out of Georgetown, Texas. Somewhat of a legacy to the Longhorns. 6'2", 215 pounds. Jett Walker becomes the second running back in this recruiting class, alongside Miami native Derek Cooper, who is committed as well. Walker, as a junior, 2,351 yards with 37 touchdowns. As a senior, 1,486 yards for another 24 touchdowns. He took an official visit to Texas this weekend after long being committed to Minnesota. Jeff, you've seen him play a couple times in person. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen, buddy.
So, a pretty interesting kid overall, Bobby. You go back to the spring, and actually the Georgetown head coach, Chuck Griffin, Georgetown head coach, had a tie to the West Virginia staff, got his film to Chad Scott, and that's how he ends up getting offered and committed to West Virginia. Chad Scott leaves. He stays committed to West Virginia. They kind of keep in contact, and Texas had been kind of keeping him warm a little bit. They didn't know they were going to need a second back in the class, Bobby. We talked about it, but Jarrett Gibson going to the portal, Ricky Stewart no longer with the program. Trey Wisner most likely probably going pro after this year. Christian Clark and CJ Baxter both with health issues, so you need a second back. And I really like Jett Walker, bigger guy, as you said, 6'2", 215-ish, power back, straight line guy, more of a one cut and go guy. And it's really interesting. You look at the two backs in this class. Derek Cooper's obviously, one of maybe the best back in the country. Both guys, again, bigger backs, more physical between the tackles, runners, kind of one cut and go guys, stick a foot in the ground to get vertical. But Jett Walker, Bobby, at the very least, he'll be able to help you on special teams, cover kicks and punts. I would, there's several guys on this team that can have the role of kickoff returner. I know with the kickoff rules have changed, so kickoff returns aren't what they used to be, but he could help you in that area too. At the very least, though, this is a bigger body power back you're adding to the room. And I think, Bobby, to me, it's an indication of kind of where Sark wants to go with this run game. I don't think he wants another year where Texas is rushing for 70 yards a game in SEC play. So they'll address the offensive line, but they're addressing the running back room with big power backs that can get downhill.
Much bigger backs, right? That's the whole issue, to your point. Last couple of years have been perhaps the two worst in Sark's tenure as a head coach, rushing the ball. What is the combination or the commonality in that? He hasn't had a big running back be fully healthy in either year, especially this year when he thought he was going to get Cedric Baxter back, and it just never transpired. Jarrett Gibson kind of did not pan out in the way that maybe the Longhorn fans or Longhorn coaches had hoped for. But you mentioned Chad Scott and Jett Walker's relationship there. Chad Scott, obviously now the Longhorn running back coach. It's interesting how things just all come around. It's like everybody's related somehow in college football recruiting, that he then becomes that guy. I will say this, when Jett Walker got this offer, you went out there and saw him play, and you're friends with one of the Georgetown coaches, longtime childhood friends. And CJ Vogel went out there. Our CJ Vogel went out there to see him as well, Jeff. And I thought it was tremendous. CJ came back and said that I think that Jett Walker is going to be a Longhorn. And I asked why. He goes, let me put it to you this way, Bobby. He goes, he told me that his grandmother had the Eyes of Texas played at her funeral. Yeah. That's a real Longhorn at heart, I guess, for sure. So this is a big time commitment, a guy that probably always wanted to be a Longhorn and now has that opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, look, I was born in Georgetown, grew up in Florence. You get a kid from Williamson County going to put on the burnt orange. I'm a fan. And, talking to Jett the day after, I talked to him the day after he got the offer, and he told me straight up, he said, look, when you grow up going to Longhorn games and you're wearing the jersey and you're throwing up the hook 'em horns and, you and your dad talk how much you love Texas, he said, it's hard to put into words how special this offer is. You knew, Bobby, it wasn't going to be too much longer where that Minnesota commit was going to stick. He was going to be a Longhorn. So this is a really big deal, Bobby. It's been a while since Georgetown has had a Texas caliber prospect. I mean, maybe Mason Crosby, honestly, maybe the last guy that was probably good enough to play at Texas, or at least was at that level. I can't remember the last time a Georgetown kid was on the Texas roster.
Yeah, it's interesting. They also brought in he was so first of all, Jett Walker, we should mention, was one of several visitors to Texas this weekend. We need to mention those guys as well. We had also in was his teammate, Kate. I make sure I'm saying this the right way, Jeff. Caden Share, the offensive lineman, 6'5.5", committed to Stanford, currently 285 pounds. He was in, as well as the pair of Louisiana kids that are both committed to LSU. Anderson.
This is banking.
Hold on a second. Is that better? I don't know what happened there. All right. Long story short, he was in that scenario, I think, Jeff, where he was one of several. Bryson Martinez, from Gonzales, Louisiana. Richard Anderson from New Orleans, Louisiana. Both those guys were in, as well as Rocky Cummings, a linebacker out of Chatsworth, California, and Josiah Vilmeal, a defensive back out of Fort Bend. So our guy here, Jett Walker, one of several guys visiting. Texas now at 22 commitments on the year, obviously still going after others at this point too, but I think they're going to be done in the high school ranks at running back at this point with the addition of Jett Walker.
Yeah, it's you look at what they're trying to add, Bobby, and some of the pieces are lining up. And keep in mind, Jett Walker, Caden Sher, Josiah Vilmeal, these guys are the senior eval guys. So these are the guys that the Texas staff kind of got on in the spring. Maybe, I know in the case of obviously Chad Scott knew about Jett Walker. But Kyle Flood went to watch Caden Sher and was kind of like, hey, I'm going to keep an eye on you. And, contact started to pick up early in the year, and they just kind of watched him and liked him even more. Kyle Flood was actually at their last game of the regular season against Cedar Park, and he gets the offer the next week. So, these are kind of their follow guys. So typically the Sark staff has done really good evaluating these guys that maybe the recruiting industry doesn't value all that much, but they just feel like, hey, whether it's tools or just his ability as a player, football character, whatever it is, that they can fit into the program. But one of the interesting guys now is Rocky Cummings, who two things. One, he really passed the eye test. Jerry and CJ were down on campus yesterday, really passed the eye test. And two, the staff really wants a linebacker. They've been evaluating guys literally coast to coast trying to get another linebacker in this class. And three, I love the fact that he was a Justin Wilcox take at Cal, because Justin Wilcox is one of the better defensive-minded head coaches in the country. Justin Wilcox is now out of a job. So if Rocky Cummings signs with Cal, he doesn't know who the head coach is going to be as of today. So that's Texas probably pretty fortunate on that one, Bobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Long story short, they've also had a couple guys visit elsewhere this weekend. Max Wright, who's been committed to Texas, big offensive lineman out of Melissa, visited SMU this weekend. He is set to visit Texas for the A&M game. Then also Vodney Cleveland, the big defensive tackle out of Birmingham, Alabama, actually visited a second time to University of North Carolina this weekend. So there's a lot of recruiting news and notes. But let's go back to Jett Walker, the person we're talking about here. Jeff, you mentioned some aspects of his game that you really liked. He's much bigger. I mean, he and Derek Cooper both have size. I think it's a bellwether sign that Sark doesn't want to be as small as he's been at running back the last couple of years. Even though Trey Weiser's a good runner, he just thinks maybe I got to get bigger because we're not moving anybody in the run game right now. We got to break some tackles, be able to run it in between the tackles, actually.
Yeah, and with the offensive line issues, have really compounded things, because there was a play, Bobby, in the third quarter of the game yesterday. As a matter of fact, it was the drive. They ended up scoring on the drive. It was the drive right after Jelani McDonald got that pick, with Taylor Green making just one of the more inexplicable decisions I've seen a quarterback at that level make in a long time. But it was a 3rd and 4. It's kind of like a little inside zone to the left, and I mean he's hemmed in right at the line of scrimmage. It just kind of wills his way to a first down, and that's kind of what the run game has been, Bobby. I mean, there hadn't been a ton of room to run. It hasn't been very explosive. I don't put that all on Trey Weiser, but it just kind of is what it is at this point. You got 91 yards on 91 yards on 22 carries out of the running backs yesterday against one of the worst run defenses in the country, and that's about as good as it gets. And for anybody that has a dog in a fight with this offense and this run game and this program, that's just straight up not good enough. You got to get more than that. Now, last year, you were so explosive on the perimeter, and the dynamic you had in the backfield with Jaden Blue as a pass receiver, it worked. You were able to move the football, and yeah, obviously you were better on the offensive line. But I think this year, everything that could have gone wrong or that the staff calculated, it was either miscalculated or has gone wrong. So I do like the fact, Bobby, we'll see how they address offensive line in the portal and what it looks like after attrition with the portal window in terms of who's left in that room. But I like the fact that they're addressing running back again with, hey, we're going to get big. And maybe at some point, they add a smaller guy. But I'll say this too, Bobby, they recruited Trey Wisner to kind of be like I hate to use it, but kind of like a Percy Harvin type guy, right? Like kind of that slot guy who could be a receiver, he could be in the backfield, kind of like what the role was envisioned for Jordan Whittington at one point. That's not really a role in Sark's offense. I mean, Ryan Wingo's fulfilling that role right now, and I don't think anybody would guess, hey, Ryan Wingo's going to get 10 carries a game or anything like that. So I think as this offense has evolved, I think Sark's realized, hey, maybe we don't need that guy. We just need to make sure that we've got guys that can thump between the tackles at times where you're trying to put games away, especially in this league. You've got to have a guy in the backfield that can lean on people a little bit.
Lean on them, and I think also I would add this, Jeff, also lean on people and break that first arm tackle. That's a big deal because, look, I mean, Trey Wisner, he can make you miss in a phone booth. So I want to give him his credit, but he's not a guy that necessarily breaks a lot of arm tackles, right? Rodrigo Ruiz asks, how fast is Jett Walker? He ran like an 11:06 100 meter. So he's not a speed demon by any measure, but I do think he has a good start. So his 0 to 10 is pretty good, in my opinion, to give you an example of that as well. Look, long story short, Longhorns doing what I think they need to do to finish up this recruiting class. They had a number of, I think, 6 official visitors in this weekend that we talked about already. They're at 22 commitments. I expect them to get to 26 to 28. This will be a pretty heavy freshman class. We'll see how it goes from here, but I would not suspect this is the last commitment. A little hint there this week for the Longhorns. We'll see when exactly that comes to pass, or if there's even more than one, by the way. But Jett Walker, formerly committed to Minnesota, now committed to the University of Texas, a 6'2", 215-pound running back out of Georgetown, Texas. For Jeff Howe, as well as our producer behind the scenes tonight, Blake Monroe, I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks for watching. And one last thing for you, Jett Walker. Hook 'em, buddy.